you know, while most of America is basically shocked and horrified by the stories and the pictures that are coming out of Trump's concentration camps, there is a small part of America, and I shouldn't say too small, it looks like maybe even a third of America is actually delighted, which is why the Trump administration allowed this Inspector General's report to go out publicly. I mean, they could have suppressed it just like they suppressed stuff coming out of the EPA and whatnot. Trump's base, though, thinks it's just fine that he's brutal and cruel. And, you know, when you ask these guys any questions about the southern border, their answer is, well, if people don't want to be stuck in those conditions, they shouldn't come to the United States, which is how, I mean, that argument is exactly how Trump and the media divert our attention from why these people are coming. Again, they're not coming looking for a job. That population, that was 15 years ago. People who came here looking for jobs, mostly from Mexico, they're going back to Mexico and have been for a decade. These are people who are fleeing a 5-year climate change-driven drought, and who is the world's largest emitter of greenhouse gases, and cumulatively is the world's largest emitter of greenhouse gases, us, the United States, number one, and number two, which is wiping out millions of family farms, and number two, you know, Ronald Reagan started this American political meddling in Central America, and you know, sow the wind, reap the whirlwind. This is the whirlwind coming back to us. And until the countries of the Americas, particularly the United States, we have to be in a leadership role on this, address these issues of the disaster, the climate change disaster that's happening in Central America right now, and the political and economic, the economic disaster that comes out of the climate change disaster, and the political disaster that comes out of, you know, the years of you know, Reagan and Republican presidents since him messing with basically governments in Central America. Until we deal with this, we're going to, much like Europe, you know, accepting large numbers of refugees from Northern Africa, and that activating a right-wing, racist, freaked-out white people base in Europe that has now, you know, given these right-wing parties, they're raised to the point where they're major players now in Germany, in France, in Poland, in Hungary. Poland and Hungary have been functionally taken over by these parties. Italy now, Greece. We're going to see more and more of this in the United States. So that, you know, as long as the media and the narrative is all about Trump and, quote, migrants, this is actually going to continue to activate Trump's base. It's going to activate his racist base, and as Congressman Pocan pointed out, it's also going to activate, you know, white middle class or working class people who have seen over the last 20, 30 years their wages steadily decline and haven't made the connection, because the media never talks about it, that the reason their wages are going down is because their unions are being decimated as a consequence of Reaganism, and because their jobs are being shipped overseas as a result of neoliberal trade policies. And instead, they're blaming, you know, they used to, pre-Reagan, they blamed, you know, the white workers blamed black people for wanting their jobs. Now they're blaming Hispanic people. It's like, you know, it's this whole snowflake culture that's promoted by the hard right. And I shouldn't even call them the hard right, because they like being called hard, you know, by the fascist right, or by the pathetic snowflake right. But Democrats need to, every time we talk about the crisis on the border and the horrible conditions, we need to point out that these people are not migrants, they're refugees, and that they are fleeing political violence that we helped create, and that they are fleeing climate change that is destroying their ecosystems and ruining family farms and throwing people into poverty that we helped create, in addition to the horror and the brutality.